I had a fan in the bathroom that was making all kinds of noises and squealing, and it's obvious to me that the bearing was going out. And then it got to the point where it just wouldn't come on. Sometimes I'd turn it on, I could hear it humming, and then a few minutes later it might turn on, it might not. Well, a couple days ago it got to the point where it just did not turn on at all. I even put my hand up inside there and tried to rotate the fan, and it was going nowhere. It just never started again. So my choice was to get a new fan and replace the whole unit. The problem with that is no one in town carries the type of fan that I have. I went to Home Depot, Lowe's, Ace, pretty much tried everywhere. The problem is I have an infrared heat lamp. You know, it's got one of the bulbs, the heat lamp bulbs. It's like a 250 watt bulb in it. And no one carries those in stock. I would have had to order it and wait, several days. Then on top of that, I'd have to go up in the attic, pull that whole box out, move all the insulation around, and rewire the fan, which has two different connections. It's got the connection for the fan itself, and then it's got a separate switch connection to the heat lamp. And I didn't feel like messing with all that. So turns out that I can replace just the motor itself, and it's less expensive, a whole lot easier to put in. I assumed the motor was riveted into the housing. It's not. So it's actually a pretty simple project to replace the motor, and that's what I'm going to show you today. This is the motor assembly from the fan. Actually, I took it out already and it's been cleaned up quite a bit. The fins of the squirrel cage fan were quite clogged up with dirt, and it wasn't just dirt that you could blow off or vacuum off. It's kind of like this stuff right here. You can see I have to scrape it off. It doesn't just come off on its own. I don't know what this stuff is, but it basically turned into concrete. So this took a lot of scrubbing to get the fan clean, but there was nothing wrong with it. I didn't want to spend another $20 on a motor with the fan cage on it. So it's a pretty simple thing to do. So it's got this little tiny ring. It's like a compression ring that went on the top here, and then the whole thing came off of here. Now you can probably see it's got a D-shaped opening. The ring goes around the top of the opening like that. And you don't really have to take it off of there in order to get the squirrel cage off. Now I did. I took my little pointed tool here and I stuck it underneath of there and just kind of pried it up and off. However, it's probably not necessary. You should be able to lift the whole fan off even without removing the ring. So if it gives you any trouble, you could squirt a little WD-40 on it to penetrate some of that grime that had gathered on there. And then just kind of put your fingers under it and rock it back and forth, and the whole thing will come off. Do hold on to that ring though. You probably don't want to lose the ring. So clean that up, set it aside. Here's the old motor, and here is the new motor. As you can see, they're pretty similar. The actual winding looks a little bit different. One's got a little longer plug on it, but the important thing is they both have the same length of shaft, the same diameter of shaft, and probably most important of all, they've got the kind of D-shaped cutout there, the flat spot. Some of the ones that I found at the hardware store, they did sell replacement motors, but they were much shorter shaft. They were skinnier, and they had a threaded end on it where the fan would go on. One actually came with a new fan, but it was quite a bit larger, and it wasn't meant for this fixture. So I had to order this one. Took a couple days to get here. As you can see, it's pretty simple. The old one just unplugged. The new one will plug right back in, but it needs this bracket. So I'm going to take the bracket off the old one and attach it to the new one. The old nuts on here, either take a 9mm or an 11/32, whatever wrench you have handy, either one of those should work. So, take these off. Now, this just slips down over the shaft and the two threads there. Put these back on. Tighten them up. And that part of it is done. Alright, now let's put the squirrel cage fan back on. So we've got our little compression fitting here, and I'm just going to kind of slip it over the top and press it down. This flat spot of the D is going to correspond with the flat spot on the shaft. So you can rotate that however you want to get so you know where the flat spot is. I'm going to aim it toward me just to make it easier, and put this down on top of it. Nice. And just gently rock it onto there. Okay, you can see it's sitting flush now. That is perfect. Now that the squirrel cage fan is attached, just kind of rotate it, make sure that it isn't on crooked, which you would see it wobbling back and forth as you turn it. And you just want to make sure that that's straight, because otherwise it's going to vibrate, and that's going to translate right through the ceiling and make it pretty loud in the bathroom. So now that this is on and it looks straight and it's flush to the top of the shaft, we're ready to go. Let's go put this back in the fan. Alright, so as you can see here, the screws I just left in. You can pull them all the way out, but there's really no need to. Just leave them in. Makes life a lot easier. We've got a slot on this side that goes in this direction. And we've got a slot that goes in this direction. We need to line those up. You got to kind of feed the squirrel cage into the hole. Might need to rotate the motor around. There we go. And you need to drop the squirrel cage back behind the wall in here, like that, so that you've got room to pivot it, and then the slot up there on that bracket slides in over the screw. And same thing here. Now that it's in, we just pivot it forward. There. We can tighten that up. Here's where a stubby screwdriver really comes in handy. Make sure it's good and tight. You don't want it to vibrate. That one's in. Let's get the upper one, which is a little bit more difficult. You gotta kind of feel to make sure that the screwdriver's engaged in the slot. There we go. Felt it drop in. Okay. Now it's in there nice and tight. Now all that's left to do is to plug the fan in, which goes here in the side of the socket. I can feel it. Can't quite, you might be able to see from that point of view. Right up here. The good news is this isn't polarized, so it doesn't really matter. All I've got to do is to be able to fit it in there. So there it goes. Before the light goes back on, we need to reattach the bezel. So the bezel has a spring on this side and a spring on this side. Those springs engage on a little hook that's right here above the label. Don't know if you can see that. My finger is touching it. And there's another hook exactly opposite. All that needs to be done is reach your hand up through the bezel. And there we go. One is attached. Okay, do the same thing for the other one. There we go. And just kind of straighten the bezel out. And we're ready for the bulb. Alright, now we're ready for the final test. First, let's turn on the fan. Nice and quiet. And then the bulb. Nice. There we go. Everything is working as it should. And this project is done.